They called it a housewarming, though nothing about it felt warm. The dining room sparkled with rented glassware, gold-trimmed place cards, and a towering floral centerpiece that blocked half the table. Mallory insisted on seating me at the far end, close enough to appear courteous, but far enough to keep me out of the family photos she kept posing for between courses. The house, my house, buzzed with noise. Laughter bounced off the hardwood floors I had chosen with Emery nearly 3 decades ago. Back then, we didn't have the budget for Italian tile or this custom lighting Mallory bragged about. But we had built this place from the foundation up with sweat and sacrifice. Every corner held a memory. And now it was a set piece in her curated life. I'm just so grateful we were able to completely redo the kitchen, Mallory said, raising her wine glass mid-toast. All thanks to the generous support of Elias's bonus and a little help from my parents. Polite laughter followed. I took a sip of water. That's not entirely accurate, I said softly without malice. The kitchen was redone last year. After Emery's passing, I covered the costs. Mallory turned slowly, her smile brittle. I'm sorry, I just meant, since the guests are thanking contributors, I thought it fair to mention. The room fell into that kind of silence that it isn't quiet, just tense. Without warning, Mallory crossed the space between us and slapped me across the face. Open palm, sharp, sudden. A gasp somewhere, then a laugh. Her father raised his glass and said, "Well, someone had to say it." Her sister snorted, still recording on her phone. "This'll go viral." I reached up, touched my cheek. It didn't sting as much as I expected. I looked at Elias. He looked down at his plate. I adjusted my shawl. Then I smiled. Not out of confusion, not from shame, but because I realized in that instant I had everything I needed. Proof, leverage, time. And they had no idea what I had already set in motion. 3 months earlier, I'd found myself standing in my own living room, being accused of theft. Mallory had claimed that a few $100s had gone missing from her purse and looked me dead in the eye as she said, "No one else was home. Callista." Elias stood behind her arms, cross-silent. I didn't even try to argue. There's no winning when someone's already decided you're guilty. That night, I sat in the dim glow of my desk lamp, staring at the crumpled receipt from the grocery run I had paid for again, while she spent her money on curated flatware and camera filters. I poured myself a cup of mint tea and made a decision. Not out of spite, out of preservation. The next morning, I called a security company, told them it was for peace of mind. A kind technician named Rosie installed 3 small cameras, one in the main hallway, one in the living room, one tucked above the dining room light fixture, subtle, discreet. I didn't need audio, just motion-detected footage stored locally on a drive only I could access. Tonight, after the slap, I went straight to my room without another word. No tears, no theatrics, just a methodical calm that felt foreign even to me. I sat down at the old roll-top desk Emery used to keep his maps in, opened the bottom drawer, and pulled out the black portable drive. I plugged it into the laptop and pulled up the feed. There it was, 3 crystal-clear angles of Mallory's hand striking my face. Her father's smug toast. Her sister's phone angled just right. Elias still, always still. I trimmed the clip, saved a copy to a second drive, and labeled it plainly, June_dinner_event. Then I locked both drives in the fireproof box beside my passport and the deed. I didn't shake. I didn't cry. I simply closed the lid. Because when someone hits you in your own home and expects you to disappear afterward, you don't disappear. You prepare. You gather your tools. You wait for the right time to act. And I had just everything I needed. This house was never supposed to feel like a cage. Emery and I poured ourselves into it. Blueprints spread across the kitchen table, arguments over tile colors, laughter echoing off bare beams. We measured the hallway widths so wheelchairs could fit, just in case he joked. We picked the lot because the oak tree out front reminded him of the one from his childhood. Every inch of this place was stitched with intention, with us. After he died, the rooms changed. Not overnight, but slowly. Like the silence settled heavier, like the sunlight didn't stretch as far. Elias started calling less. Then, one day, he called in tears he'd been laid off, said it was temporary, just a setback. Mallory had just lost a sponsorship deal. They needed a place to stay for a little while. Of course, I said yes. They moved in with just 3 suitcases and 2 boxes of ring lights. Within a month, my den became Mallory's content room. The laundry schedule no longer included me. I was invisible in my own home. Mallory, through backyard mixers, introduced herself as lady of the house, gave tours like she'd drawn the blueprints herself. I told myself it wasn't worth the fight. That peace was more important, that they were going through a hard time. But peace doesn't sound like whispered insults in the hallway or quiet lock clicks on doors that used to stay open. The worst came 2 weeks ago. I'd returned from the pharmacy earlier than expected and heard Mallory's voice behind the closed office door. She was on speakerphone. "She'll never see it coming," she said. "We'll tell her it's a wellness retreat, a month at most. Once she's out, we file the address change and forward the mail." Someone on the line laughed. My legs nearly gave out. I stood frozen in the hall, listening to my daughter-in-law plan how to move me into a facility like I was a nuisance to be managed. And Elias was in the room too. He didn't speak. He didn't stop her. I never told them I heard. I just started preparing for war. Quietly. Because the house may have betrayed me, but the deed never did. The key was tucked behind the second photo on my dresser, an old trick Emery taught me back when we thought secrets were romantic, not necessary. I slid open the roll-top desk and unlocked the bottom drawer. The envelope was exactly where I left it, untouched and quietly patient like a loyal dog waiting by the door. Inside was the original deed, signed and notarized in our names Callista and Emery Wren. After he passed, I had it refiled solely under mine. No joint ownership, no transfer, no confusion. My name stood alone at the top, legally binding and impossible to dispute. I ran my thumb along the raised seal, feeling its weight. Then I picked up the phone and called Geneva Farrow. She was still practicing out of that converted Victorian downtown, still the same sharp voice with no tolerance for fluff. When I explained what had happened, well, not everything, just the essentials, she told me to come in the next morning. I didn't even need to bring the deed, she said. She already knew it would check out. I brought it anyway. And I brought the flash drive. She watched the footage on her office monitor in silence. Her expression didn't change until Mallory's palm connected with my cheek, followed by her father's smug toast. When the screen went dark, Geneva slowly sat back in her chair and crossed her arms. "Jesus, Callista," she said, "you have everything, I know, and you're not pressing charges or not yet." She nodded. "You know you're well within your rights to evict them. No lease, no rent, no claim. We'll file the notice within the week. I want them out. Quietly, legally. But with no room for reversal." "Understood," she said, tapping her pen. "You realize this won't be clean. People will talk. Elias may push back." I looked her straight in the eye. "Are you asking if I'm ready? I'm asking if you're sure." I smiled just a little. I was born ready. I just forgot for a while. We scheduled the first filing. As I stepped back into the sunlight, I finally felt something I hadn't in years: leverage. It started with a thumbnail of her tear-streaked face and the words, "She threw wine at me." Now I'm homeless in a bold pink font. I wouldn't have even seen it if my neighbor's granddaughter hadn't sent me the link. Mallory's video, just under 6 minutes, was shot in her signature soft filter lighting. She sniffled through it, claiming I had a violent outburst during dinner, that I screamed and shattered a wine glass, nicking her hand. The acting was good. Her voice broke at all the right moments. "I just didn't feel safe in her house anymore," she said. "And now she's trying to evict us while we're vulnerable." I read the comments. Hundreds of them, mostly sympathy. "She's clearly unstable. Ugh, toxic ML energy." It stung more than I expected. Not because I cared what strangers thought, but because I knew exactly how easily narratives can be rewritten when you stay silent. So I didn't. I didn't post a response. I didn't comment or even share the video. Instead, I mailed an unmarked USB to a friend of Geneva's, a tech-savvy lawyer who just happened to be active on a certain Reddit forum. 2 days later, the thread hit the front page. Influencer fakes abuse story, leaked video tells a different truth. The footage was raw and unedited. My quiet correction, Mallory's sudden slap, her father's smug toast, her sister's phone camera still filming, and Elias frozen like a statue. The comments came faster than I could keep up. Who slaps a senior and laughs? This is elder abuse. This is sick. She's the real victim and didn't even raise her voice. Class act. Mallory's followers plummeted. One by one, brand deals began to vanish. A skincare company pulled her face from their homepage. A home decor partnership posted a vague statement about realigning our values. By the end of the week, Mallory deleted the video, but it was too late. Screenshots were forever. The internet had chosen a side, and it wasn't hers. Sunday brunch was in full swing when I walked into my own kitchen. Mallory had arranged roses in 3 gold-trimmed vases, and her mother was swirling mimosa glasses with the smug grace of someone who thought her daughter owned the world. I wore my best pressed linen, the kind Emery liked quiet power, in buttons and pleats. Geneva had printed the notice on thick ivory paper. I tucked it into a simple envelope and slid it across the marble island. "For your attention," I said. Mallory looked at it like I'd handed her a spider. "What is this official notice of termination of your tenancy?" I replied. "You can't be serious." Her voice rose an octave high-pitched and theatrical. Her mother stepped in. "You're making a fool of yourself, Callista. We'll have this reversed in court by Monday. You're welcome to try," I said calmly. "But the title's in my name. Would you like a copy?" The room froze. Even the blender paused. Mallory scoffed, but Elias went pale. "Wait," he said. "The house. What about the documents we filed?" "The quitclaim, the refinancing," Mallory said. "I never filed the quitclaim," I said, turning to him. "I reviewed it, but I never signed. You never noticed, did you?" His eyes darted panic now. "But the remodel? We used the equity." "Equity in something you don't own is theft," I said, evenly. "But we can let the lawyers sort that out." Mallory's mouth moved, but no sound came. Her mother stared at me like I'd grown fangs. I didn't gloat. There was no pleasure in it, only finality. A quiet shift in weight, like a table that had been unbalanced for years, finally settling on level ground. I turned, walked out of the kitchen, and left the brunch to sour under the weight of something none of them had counted on consequences. Behind me, Elias called after me once, just once. I didn't turn around, not even when I heard Mallory knock a vase off the counter. He knocked on my door 2 nights later, not the front door, but the side one, the one that creaked and stuck unless you lifted the handle just right. I opened it slowly, unsure of what version of my son I'd be facing. He looked smaller than I remembered, not physically, but something in him had folded inward. His voice cracked before he even said hello. "Can I come in?" he asked. I nodded. We sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I used to press his school shirts and help him with algebra he pretended not to understand. Now we sat across from each other like strangers with too much history between us. "I didn't know it would go this far," he said. "Mallory, she's good at making things feel urgent, like if you don't act fast, you're choosing the wrong side." I let him speak. He needed to hear himself. "She said you were controlling," he continued, "that you made everything about you, that you were sabotaging us our independence. I didn't see it then. I thought I was protecting my marriage." He buried his face in his hands. "I was wrong. I see that now, and I know I hurt you. Can you ever forgive me?" I waited a long moment before answering. "Forgiveness," I said quietly, "isn't something I hand out like sugar packets. It's earned. I'm not angry with you, Elias. I'm free." He looked up confused. "Free. For the first time in years," I said. "I stopped hoping you'd choose me." He opened his mouth to say something else, but I cut him off. "And Elias," I said gently, "you didn't just hurt me emotionally. You accessed my retirement account last fall. $35,000 to pay off Mallory's launch expenses. You never asked." His face drained of color. I checked the statements. Geneva helped me file the fraud report. It's under review now. He didn't speak. Couldn't. I stood slowly, walked to the window, and looked out at the darkened garden Emery once tended. "There's a cost to every betrayal," I said softly, "and it doesn't always come in dollars." It started with a headline on the local news site, "Elderly woman, slapped by daughter-in-law, in viral video reclaims home." A cropped still from the footage showed my face mid-turn, the blur of Mallory's hand just before impact. The article was short, but the sentiment echoed far and wide. People began sharing it with captions like, "She didn't scream. She didn't strike back. She took her power quietly." I never intended to be a symbol. I only wanted peace. But somehow the story touched a nerve, something about dignity, aging, and being underestimated. Messages poured in from women I'd never met, grandmothers, single mothers, daughters estranged from their families. They called me brave, calm, relentless. Then the podcast invitation came. "Stories that stay," they said. "It's about resilience. We'd be honored." I said no at first. I didn't want to become someone's talking point. But that night, I watched Lily the neighbor's girl. I sometimes babysat singing to herself in the garden. I remembered Mallory's laughter, her sister's camera, and I said yes. In the studio, the lights were soft, the host gentle. She asked me what happened, and I told the truth, not just the slap, but the years of erasure. And, at the end, I looked at the camera and said, "I built a house. I built a family. And when they tried to silence me, I found my voice." The clip was everywhere the next day. Mallory's remaining contracts dropped her within 24 hours. A company she once collaborated with released a statement about their commitment to elder rights. Elias's tech firm quietly let him go, citing personal conduct concerns. Their fall wasn't loud. It was steady. I didn't gloat, but I did stand taller. Not for revenge, but because for the first time in years, I wasn't looking over my shoulder, and I was no longer the woman who whispered to herself in her own home. They moved out on a Thursday morning, 2 weeks after the notice. No shouting, no tears, just a truck idling in the driveway while Mallory tried to keep her face turned away from a reporter's camera. Elias didn't meet my eyes. I didn't offer a farewell. By noon, they were gone. I stood in the doorway, silence swelling in the space where their noise used to be. Then I called the locksmith. The new locks clicked shut with a satisfying finality. I chose brushed brass this time, quiet elegance. The front door, once Mallory's favorite photo backdrop, got a fresh coat of navy blue. It no longer had to be a canvas for anyone else's image. I boxed up her branding props, gold-plated placemats, faux flower walls, ring lights, and dropped them off at Goodwill with a receipt and no emotion. That weekend, I hosted my own brunch. Not with influencers or curated playlists, just 6 women from the neighborhood, retired teachers, widows, a nurse. We ate blueberry scones, drank strong coffee, and passed stories across the table like old coins. They asked what had happened, some already knew. I told them, not for sympathy, but because too many of us were taught to be quiet even when we were right, especially then. I told them I wasn't brave at first. I was just tired of being erased. And that tiredness had finally turned into a fire. That day we formed something new, a circle. We meet every other Sunday now in my sunroom. We call it Still Standing. No one cries for attention, but they do cry, and we hold space for that. We talk about boundary setting, about adult children who take more than they give, about friendship, about freedom. We don't end the meetings with affirmations. We end with plans. I've started writing again, just little essays, memories I never gave myself permission to hold. The garden's coming back to life, too. I planted lavender last week. I go to bed with the windows open now. The house breathes again. And this time, every inhale feels like mine. It was early spring when Lily came to visit. The tulips had just begun to push through the garden beds, stubborn and unbothered by the frost that still clung to the edges of the mornings. She wore a backpack twice her size and a piano sheet rolled up like a scroll, her eyes bright with the kind of hope I used to mistake for naivety. "Grandma," she said, as she spread out her music on the dining room table, "do you still cry when someone is mean to you?" I paused. The tea kettle hissed behind me, its whistle gentle. I turned, met her gaze. I cry, I said softly. Then I write a better ending. She nodded as if she understood, something older than her years, then tapped her fingers over imaginary keys. We set up the small keyboard she'd brought for her school project and adjusted the phone to record. Ready, ready. She played carefully, a simple melody about rain and morning light. Her posture was poised but relaxed. When she finished, I clapped softly. She smiled, then leaned toward the phone and whispered into the microphone, unaware I was still watching. My grandma is the bravest person I know. I didn't say anything. I just walked over and kissed the top of her head. Later that night, after she was asleep and the house had gone quiet again, I checked the mail. Tucked among circulars and utility statements was a thick cream envelope with embossed lettering. A law group, national firm. I frowned at first, expecting another refinance offer or a state ad. But inside was something else entirely, a letter. They'd seen my story. They were representing a growing number of elderly women who had been coerced into signing over property pensions and independence under the guise of family care. Would I consider being a testimonial voice in their national campaign? They didn't want drama. They wanted dignity, a face for survival, not pity. I held the letter in my hands, then looked around the living room. The walls I once thought would close in had become something else entirely, a beginning.